The following program is intended for mature audiences.
A democratic republic of sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
Welcome into the Sportsocracy, live from Asheville, North Carolina. This is the Wicked Weed Studio, brought to you, of course, by Wicked Weed Brewing. Drink different. We are the Sportsocracy. Tank and Jeremy are on vacation right now. That's why you see these three, well, two familiar faces. We got one new one today that we're going to introduce you to. I'm Caleb Peak at CPeakABL on Twitter. Big Brian Haynes immediately to my right, B Sportsocracy on Twitter as well. Tommy Bradley, first time on camera.
Yes,
Glad
sir.
to have you with us, sir. I know you're excited. How do you feel about it?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you guys having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
First off, before we get into all these spicy hot takes, just got to say happy Mother's Day before that comes up this weekend.
Absolutely.
Do something nice for your moms this weekend. Shout out to my mom. But yeah, so we, with the show, we really listen to what the fans want. We really appreciate their input, and the thing that, they've been saying the show really needs is another white guy with a beard. So, I'm happy to bring that fresh perspective to you guys today. And but seriously, I'm excited to get to sit down and talk sports with you guys. And if it goes terrible, you can send all your hate mail to @JGreenESPN. Because he's being very selfish and taking a day off. So
how dare he? How dare he?
We took up half his morning trying to figure out how we did get this stuff here, but we do appreciate Jeremy very much and what he does for us, because obviously this morning was we were trying our hardest, and we're here.
We're here. We made it.
We made it. We're on air, and everything's going great.
The refrain is better than nothing. But hey, at the very least, we've got another white dude with a beard. So it's happening right here on the Sportsocracy. Like, share, follow on YouTube, and check us out on Facebook as well. All the social media platforms. Speaking of that, you can find us anywhere that there's an internet presence. Guys, we've got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
Now, we're here in the southeast, kind of Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia region. And so we're going to keep it just a little local today. We're going to talk the Carolina Panthers, because we have a couple of Panthers fanatics here. We have a writer who is going to be covering the Carolina Panthers more in depth coming up later in the summer. So we're going to get his expertise. We're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers a little more in depth about their chances in the NFC South and in the NFL as a whole this year. We're going to talk a little bit of NL East as well. I'm not really sorry to all of those of you who don't like baseball, because you're just in for it today.
We got to talk about it every once in a while.
We have to.
Everything, you know what I'm saying?
Especially as close as the NL East is, and as mediocre as it's been.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be as bad as it is, and we're going to dive into that later on as well. Not to mention college basketball. We got some big news coming out of Georgia with the new signing of the NIL law. The name, image, and likeness law will be in effect in Georgia. Not only that, but we're going to talk about the overall state of college basketball as well. That's all coming up over the next, however long we can stretch it. Hopefully, we can make it an hour. I don't see any reason why we can't. Starting things off in Charlotte, the Carolina Panthers had more than a decent draft class. Wouldn't you agree, Tommy?
There's been a lot of debate. I've seen a lot of A's out there, seen a lot of C minuses, so it's all over the board.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe in Matt Rhule. Our chances are way more than I did when Ron Rivera was coach. I feel like that conservative approach is out the window. We're going with a coach that really knows how to develop people. But with the draft, when you have a top 10 pick, my rule of thumb has always been, if you're picking in the top 10, you've got to get a premier talent, and you've got to get that talent at a position that you can't normally fill otherwise.
Right.
So in free agency, a good starting left tackle comes, once in a blue moon, and then you have to, commit a significant portion of the cap to that left tackle whenever they do become available. So I would have thought, that's a little bit more of a need than corner, but I do understand they couldn't get off the field on third down last year. We couldn't play any press man on the corners. So with what they did in free agency, bringing in some pass rush, I understand wanting to put J.C. Horn across from A.J. Boye, have some press man going so we can get off the field on third down. I just don't know if that was as big of a need as tackle, but, if they didn't think that Rashawn Slater could play left tackle at that point, if there's no good trade down options, I think that's, what they had to go with. So as a fan, was I upset about not getting a left tackle? Yes. Maybe not as upset as Brian was about the Giants not getting a left tackle.
No one can be that
more
upset
than I do.
I'm sure you guys have seen that highlight by now.
Yeah. If you haven't seen them, go check them out because they're quite funny.
It's like an 8-minute clip. You're going to want to check it out on the Sportsocracy YouTube page. I laughed until I cried and did some other things. As far as the pass rush is concerned for Carolina, Brian Burns rushing off of the right end. Hassan Reddick, according to the depth chart right now, which amounts to jack shit, frankly, at this stage in the offseason. But Hassan Reddick is the left defensive end on the depth chart for Carolina. Let's talk about this draft class, though. Let's run down the list. J.C. Horn is your first selection, of course, 8th overall out of South Carolina. Thought it was a great pick for the secondary. He's kind of like the reincarnation of Ben Benwickery, in a way. Several years later, the way that he's able to cover so much ground. I understand there's a difference in position there between safety and corner, but so much speed, so much intelligence on the behalf of J.C. Horn, and he comes from a great bloodline.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the genes, obviously. He's played in the NFL. I was like so 50-50 on the actual pick itself because I do understand the mindset of the Panthers in that, okay, we missed out on the opportunity to get Penei Sewell, which was obviously they couldn't have ran that ticket in fast enough if he was still on the board. But after that, then you kind of looked at it, and then Rashawn Slater, there's a lot of people who didn't think he could play left tackle. Then you had, the next best left tackles were more end of first round, early second round grades that I feel like if they would have way overreached for that position. Right. Now I feel a little bit, and that's the thing when we talk about this, and that's the biggest glaring hole for the Panthers right now, and they need to 100% address that, is the left tackle position. There is a couple names out there, and the guys talked about it on Wednesday on the ESPN show, where it would seem like the best option at this point would be to bring Russell Okung back, just because of his familiarity in Joe Brady's offense, and the scheme and everything like that. There is some other players available out there. I don't know if they're going to have a chance to get them. Eric Fisher's still out there, but he met with the Colts the other day, and I almost think that, and if he has, he might have already signed. I'm not even sure on that. But there's other guys out there. Charles Leno was let go by the Bears. He wasn't anything super duper awesome out there. It just seems like even at the next draft pick, and everybody's like Terrace Marshall Jr., that was a great pick. We needed him. There was some left tackles available at that spot in the second round where they could have addressed the left tackle position, where I thought maybe they could have gotten another wide receiver a little bit later on in the draft. Now, the talent for Terrace Marshall Jr. is off the hook. That's the problem we're having with the Panthers draft class right now, is that you're looking at these players and you're like, these are great players. I'm glad that we got them. And this is a lot of what we talked about with everybody's draft class, was that there were certain players taken at certain times where maybe you could have gotten another player. I know we talked about that with quite a few teams in this draft. You can't deny the talent that the Panthers got in the draft. And if they can sign Russell Okung and kind of fill up that left tackle position, but they need to address that like ASAP, because going into a season without a left tackle is going to be a recipe for disaster.
Especially with Sam Darnold joining the roster. I mean, you have to protect this man. The next 3 picks for Carolina really benefit Sam, honestly. Terrace Marshall Jr., you give him another weapon at wideout, then you bring in Brady Christensen out of Notre Dame to provide a little bit of protection. Tommy Trimble's a good addition at tight end. You trying to recover from the Greg Olsen years. You've needed a solid tight end, and there you go. And then you bring in somebody to back up CMC. I mean, CMC needs a rest every now and then, so that's where Chuba Hubbard comes in out of Oklahoma State. Is he CMC? No, but can he carry the ball? Can he carry it without fumbling it? Can he fall forward and pick up a first down? Absolutely he can. So that's
why he needs to be able to block. That's the biggest concern on him.
Yeah, Matt Rhule wanted to be able to, go home and sleep in peace when his wife asked him to grab Chuba Hubbard. I think the main thing with Chuba Hubbard is he ran all over Baylor when Matt Rhule was there. So he's seen the talent. He knows what he can do. The thing with Matt Rhule is he has an absolute, if not sometimes delusional, belief in his coaching abilities and his staff.
I like that.
So He wants guys with length, he wants guys with athleticism, all the intangibles, and he thinks he can mold you into a good player. So you'll see these reclamation projects that haven't panned out other places that were high draft picks that Matt Rhule really thinks him and his staff can turn around. And I think that's a little bit what they did with Sam Darnold. They looked into, how they would grade him coming out of college. They looked at his pro day. They tried not to take into account too much of what was going on with the Jets. They said, if this was a raw player coming out this year at 23 years old, what can we do with him?
Yeah.
And I think I have to grade this draft, even though I think we missed on some key need areas. Mm-hmm. I'm including the Sam Darnold trade in the draft, and the Panthers are the only team that got a top-tier quarterback and a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
So all of the picks that they traded, next year's 2nd, 4th, and a 6th this year, I believe, they recouped and trading back.
Yeah, they did a great job. Scott Fitterer was definitely on his game, recouping those draft picks. I just there were so many of them, and you got to be. So it's. I see what you're saying. It's you want to try to clump all those in, and it's almost fair to say, if I'm not mistaken, maybe this is a 2-year kind of grade. Maybe see what we can do. As I say, I mean the Carolina Panthers. What the Panthers can do with this year, because I think they're going to take an extra step this year. I mean, they're not the bottom feeders of the NFC South anymore.
Look, they won, I believe, 8 games by less than a touchdown, and they didn't exactly have the most clutch, air-it out quarterback in the fourth quarter. He's, for God bless Teddy B and his $31 million that we gave him for 15 months. But he's not exactly the most clutch quarterback. So, I think they are looking at it as a 2-year thing. You've seen different people say that if Sam Darnold came out in the draft this year, that he would have been the 2nd or 3rd quarterback taken.
Yeah.
So if you look at it like that and you think, they got a haul of people would have probably taken Sam Darnold in the top 5.
Right.
And they get a top flight corner with great pedigree to fix that need.
Yep.
I have to give them a little bit of a better grade than I would normally.
Yeah.
We still don't have that, traditionally successful left tackle, like you said.
Yeah.
That's huge. Sam Darnold needs that. He needs protection. But I believe in Joe Brady's scheme, what they're thinking is, Joe Brady spreads it out.
Yep.
He gets the ball out of the quarterback's hands to his ball handlers in space. I think they did invest some money in Cam Irving, which was a little confusing because they were really quick in free agency on that. That was the first day of free agency. They got Cam Irving. So in my mind, I just have to think that Matt Rhule sees something in Cam Irving that he thinks he can coach up.
Yeah.
We do still have Trent Scott.
Yeah.
We do have, Brady Christensen, but he was talking about him as sort of like a guard tackle that's versatile. So I'm not sure if he's eyeing him at the left tackle spot.
He could move around on the line.
And I think he's multiple. Brady Christensen could be very multiple. And there's some people. I mean, he was a left tackle for Zach Wilson.
Right.
I mean, so it's not like he doesn't have experience playing left tackle.
It's a pro-style system at BYU.
And it's the same kind of system. He might be able to do this. Maybe they're looking at him, and that's maybe why they haven't addressed this. Maybe they look at him and they say, you know what, Brady Christensen can do that for us because maybe Joe's got this idea of we're going to be doing so many things offensively that we're going to be putting defenses on their heels, changing schemes up. We're going to have double protection here. We're going to have protection over there. And so maybe that's what they're doing. And, again, this is why I'm trying to I'm looking at a projection of a couple years.
Right.
I'm hoping that because everything's better around us when the Carolina Panthers are good. Let's be honest, especially especially for what we do in this market that we're in. It does help a lot. And I mean, they are so improved.
We're talking about, obviously, the left tackle, a huge need for Carolina. It's something that needs to be filled. But everything else seems to be coming together. I'm really, really high on this Shi Smith pick. I think he's the steal of the draft, 6th round, 204th pick overall. Never thought he would fall that far. He's 5'10", 185, so he's 10 pounds heavier than Devontae Smith. But the kid is an absolute stalwart. My comp for him, I said it in the comments the other day, is Steve Smith from Carolina. He's small, fast, he's gritty. He doesn't mind to get his hands dirty. But that left tackle position could really come back to bite Carolina, especially when you go against a defense like Tampa Bay with Levante David coming down the gun barrel at you.
Shaquille Barrett, I mean, they're crazy. Loaded with pass rushers.
So my question is, Carolina's good enough for the number 2 spot in the NFC South this year. Is there a path, either one of you guys, to where they can take down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and be number 1?
I'll take the lead on that one. I think one of Jeremy's favorite things and one of Jay Billis' favorite things is a year away from a year away.
Right.
And I think, obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are absolutely loaded. Do I think the Panthers can make a playoff run? I think they could. I don't think they can win this division. I don't think that's would be a pipe dream. the NFC's loaded right now. There's a lot of good teams. But I have this envision that Sam Darnold is going to be like, oh my God, I finally got people around me that can help me. And we're going to see the quarterback that a lot of people saw 3 years ago coming out of college.
And I really hope that, these coaches see his talent and look at what he did at USC and how they can help him be in comfortable situations. With the Jets, sorry, Jeremy, they had one of the worst coaches in the NFL, and they consistently put him in play action. I saw a stat where I believe he was somewhere around 47% completion percentage on play action his second year with the Jets. And that's not going to be Joe Brady's offense. I think they are going to try to get the ball out of his hands. He is sneaky athletic. He's a big kid, sneaky athletic. There's a lot of things he can do. I do think they need to shore up that left tackle spot. I don't know if that's going to be Russell Okung. I just look at it as they were so close in so many games last year. They still won a fair amount of games. And the thing that hurt them last year was, number one, Russell Okung. He was getting paid a good amount of money in Bitcoin. So while he was collecting his Bitcoin, he played 2 or 3 games, I think. So we had to kind of piece together a line the entire year. So even though we didn't get a high-quality left tackle, I think we got a lot of depth pieces, a lot of versatile pieces, where we don't have to worry from Sunday to Sunday about making sure we have bodies just to fill that line. And then Joe Brady can do more things, creatively in his scheme, because he is a great play caller. He's such a young coach, and he's already getting interviews for every team basically this year to be their head coach. So there's obviously talent there in him, and I think he can do great things with Sam Darnold. And I just hope, the few things that held the Panthers back last year, getting off the field on third down, not having a pass rusher opposite Burns, not having a quarterback that really had the arm and the creativity to get the ball down the field. I think they solved all those. I do think the Saints got worse. I think the Falcons got a little bit better. I mean, obviously adding Kyle Pitts, he's a monster weapon to add to that offense. So it's going to be tough to stop them. And, of course, the Buccaneers, reigning champs. They've just got so many veterans. Tom Brady is Tom Brady. I don't see a way they win the division. Can I see a path to them getting a wild card and making some noise and really having some top tier teams not want to see them in the playoffs? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and Alex Center's in the comments saying about, they have the money to go get Eric Fisher. If they have an opportunity to get Eric Fisher, that's 100% what they need to do. After I read that he was meeting with the Colts the other day, I've already assumed that he's either signing with the Colts or somehow, some way, the Chiefs have been able to manipulate their freaking salary cap, and he goes back there. Yeah,
the Chiefs do really create. I don't know what they do. They've got some really great accountant that can cook their books, because they've got like $1 billion in roster right now that they've got spread out over 40 years. I don't know how it's going to play out. Jeremy says it's going to end up terrible, but as long as Pat Mahomes is on your team, I think they'll be all right.
I mean. And welcome Lego My Ego into the comment section. He's a Chiefs fan.
Hey,
we haven't seen that before. Want to let go. What's going on?
It gets better, I promise. Just hang on.
The Chiefs do a really good job. It was really funny. Draft day came on last night, and I was watching that, and it's just so funny watching what was going on.
Reliving your trauma?
Being involved in what I was last week was pretty crazy. But it was pretty crazy. And then the person who was on the salary cap was obviously played by Jennifer Gardner, and she was just like, I don't give a crap what I do. As long as we're under the cap and we do this, I'll figure something out. And I think there's been some ways to manipulate contracts in a down year in salary cap.
The void years.
That they do the void years, and it's something that we haven't seen before, because honestly the salary cap is skyrocketed over the last 10 years.
Right.
And we just had a down year, obviously, with the pandemic, so people were having to play these mental gymnastics with the money and everything. So it's pretty funny. I mean, the Panthers are in a good position. They've done everything the right way.
Right.
They didn't go crazy. I'm so glad they didn't do anything nuts like draft Justin Fields with the pick with J.C. Horn. There was so much talk about this and that was kind of surprising to me, is because when the Sam Darnold trade happened, the amount, it seemed like to me, and I don't know what you guys felt, but I felt like the chatter was about 50-50 about they're happy with Sam Darnold, or they were like, why are we getting this guy?
At first, yeah. I think Panthers Nation has clearly warmed up to Sam Darnold over time, especially seeing the relationship that Matt Rhule has with his young quarterback. How can you not like the dynamic that they have going on? It really is. It's nothing but good things to come in Charlotte as long as he's able to maintain the level of play that he has. As far as the NFL schedule itself, Wednesday, May 12th, 8 o'clock in the evening is when that's set to drop. We do know that the Chiefs and the Packers, first place in both of their respective divisions, they will play at some point because of the pairing system that the NFL uses. We don't know when they'll play because we don't have the schedule yet, but we know that they will play.
They've got to check with Aaron Rodgers and make sure he's not filming Jeopardy. And then
no conflicts.
Once that's done, they're going to make the schedule for the Packers. So
Yep.
Let me get released for 500, Alex.
Awesome.
But, May 12th, 8 o'clock. Can't wait for the schedule to come down. I wish it was the first week in September already. An extra regular season game this year as well. Lots of fun stuff coming.
I'm kind of excited for that. I don't know why. I just feel like I guess maybe it's the fantasy football player in me. You know,
right.
Like we got an extra week of fantasy. Extra week of fantasy. I get to play than we normally do.
Right.
And which had commissioners out there trying to be creative in how they're going to do with that extra game. So shout out to my Dynasty League, the Southern Money. Yep.
There's a lot that can be done with that extra game, especially if you've got 100% fans in the stands.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference having a crowd
and I think
at full throat.
We're starting to get that way soon.
Yeah.
You know?
Carolina will have full fans, and they will be loud at B of A Stadium. I promise you that. Let's get away from the NFL for just a minute. Basketball fans, stand by. Give me 15, 20 minutes. We'll get to your sport. Right now, we're going to talk America's sport. We're going to talk America's pastime. The Major League Baseball.
Really?
In my mind, it is.
And I got nothing wrong with it because I'm a baseball fan.
I got my red, white, and blue boxers on.
I think the American pastime, it's still got a name.
Right.
And there's a lot, and baseball's still good. People are down on it. Baseball's still good.
Oh, the product is really good.
I think a lot of the negotiations with the MLB and the Players Association really turned a lot of people off. I think last year when they, a lot of things really got exposed about the MLB. And so I think that's why, attendance has been a little down, viewership's been a little down. They saw a bunch of, really, a bunch of billionaire owners basically that were saying, we can't do these certain things for these players and these fans, and woe is me, all those things when everyone was going through things last year.
Yeah.
And these billionaires, they can put a product on the field for the players without all these negotiations, all these backdoor deals. I think it just got too complicated. We need to get back to, simple baseball the way it used to be.
I really think the Houston Astros cheating scandal had a horrible effect on the game of baseball. I think a lot of people tuned out, especially not having fans last year. A lot of people would watch these games just to see the abuse that the fans would heap on the Astros, and they got their retribution for that over the last week. I mean, it was great to see what happened in New York.
I had to knock on trash cans in Little League to get by, so I'm not here to judge, but
that's part of it, right?
Me and Tank talked about this a couple of weeks ago about the people are already saying, when is enough enough? Listen, fans were denied last year the ability to go and rag on these Houston players.
They got off pretty easy.
So they're going to go into it's going to happen this year. If we're still doing this a couple years down the road, then it's one thing.
Right.
We do have to address something before we get into the NL East talk. Yesterday I was watching PTI. It was part of the interruption with Kornheiser and Wilbon.
Love it.
And their conversation is about how much is the no-hitter any good for baseball? Is it good for baseball or is it detrimental for baseball? And I thought that was just an absurd question.
I think it's obviously good. It's something that doesn't happen. I mean, what is it? I think there's 2,000.
There have been 2 no-hitters in the league this year, plus the one by Madison Bumgarner that didn't count. So 3 technically.
He finished all those innings that they were meant to be played. That's a stupid baseball rule right there.
Oh yeah.
No-hitters are good for baseball. No-hitters are definitely good for baseball because it brings attention to baseball.
Right.
It's going to lead to every single sports story. It's going to lead to every single thing. It's going to be on the front pages. That's the thing.
Even though they robbed my guy Mad Bum of his no-no. Just because it's a 7-inning game.
Travesty. I mean, here's the thing. Baseball has, and there's a stat that I keep coming to, which is kind of crazy, that I read not too long ago, that the ball is actually traveling 15 feet lesser this year on fly balls.
With the dead ball.
So the ball has been deadened a little bit. I think, by going back and forth with this thing because it seems like it's every couple years. They got to figure it out. Let's stick to one thing because, chicks dig the long ball.
Right.
100%.
No doubt.
I mean, like, let's talk about it.
100%.
They want to see home runs. They want to see these things. So you got these guys that are still figuring out. And what I'm noticing, and this is crazy because, and I know it slows the game down, but these players are not looking for the right pitch. They're not working the count like they used to. I mean, the Yankees, as my team, used to be a team that literally you would see 3-2 count, 3-2 count, 3-2 count, work the walk, foul off.
Yankees or dingers or nothing.
Yeah. It's just like we're getting to that point. Exactly what you just said. We're getting to that point in baseball right now where it's like these guys are up there swinging. We don't see guys playing the percentages of moving the guy ahead.
Right.
When there's a guy on first, there's nobody trying to hit an opposite field so he can get to third. I mean, just all the fundamentals that we learned when we were kids. It doesn't seem like any of these are happening because a little bit of the analytics of baseball is kind of throwing that away, which is, to me, I don't like when there's half the people on the field over on there. It just doesn't look right to me, and I think that's another part of the decline of baseball.
And to your point about the dead ball, they've knocked 15 feet off of the flight of the ball, and it's still going 485 feet.
Yeah.
Ronald Acuna Jr. and others are still absolutely raking.
He's a man-child.
He's unbelievable good.
If it were still a live ball, how far could it fly?
Right.
I mean,
I think they're just, you're seeing some of the, the more routine.
Yeah, they're being phased out of the game for sure. I think you see these trends in baseball.
Yeah.
And I think, every few years we get these different trends. And right now, I think the past few years, it's really been about pitchers getting to spin rate, pitchers getting to their breaking balls. Everybody can hit a fastball now. So the way the pitchers have adapted is going to these breaking balls, making sure they have good spin rate. The Braves went out and got Charlie Morton and Drew Smyly, a couple guys with good spin rate. So I think, there's really this battle that goes back and forth every few years on, the pitchers trying to find their edge, the hitters trying to find their edge. But I do agree they need to stay with the same baseball. I really enjoy, I don't mind the juiced ball because, one, the fans really enjoy it. When you go to a game, you want to see home runs. It's already really hard for hitters, especially with all these breaking balls, especially with the spin rates that are going on right now. Everybody is working on their breaking stuff. So if every now and then when a pitcher throws a fastball, a guy hits it 500 feet, all the better. I think they just need to pick one thing, stick with it. Mm-hmm. And, I enjoy watching the trends go back and forth. But I think as far as changing, the baseballs, changing, all the little things about the game that the MLB tries to change, we need to just phase that out, stay consistent, and get back to, normal baseball.
And when it comes to breaking balls, there are none better in the league than, well, you've got Ian Anderson's changeup, but primarily Max Fried's slider. Yeah. And bringing Max Fried into the Atlanta lineup with Ian Anderson and soon to come Mike Soroka to get back into the one spot, that's the reason why you're seeing the Braves turn things around defensively. The hot bats were the tail of the tail for Atlanta early on, but they couldn't stop the bleeding. They couldn't stop anybody from scoring. They were just getting smoked in the scoring column.
Right.
And now you've got some arms, and with the return of Max Fried, and he's got a really good glove as well. He's one of the best fielding pitchers that you're going to see. Bringing these guys back, the horses with that ball movement, with these high spin rates where the ball moves 8 to 10 inches. I mean, it's just ridiculous how much movement it covers. That's why you're seeing the Braves beginning to climb back up into the standings, even though in third place right now at 15 and 16, this was a first place team only a week ago. And only a half week ago, this was a fourth place team.
Yeah.
That things are not good in the NL East.
It's still very early, and I just want to say, while we got a bunch of people in the a bunch of people here watching, which we really appreciate, make sure you hit that blue thumbs up button and like this video, because it definitely helps out the SEOs and gets us out there more and more and more. The Braves are going to be okay. Freddie Freeman is one for his last 29 or something like that.
He's in a slump.
This is the NL MVP from last year. Mm-hmm. He's going to catch. Freddie Freeman is a ball player and he's a gamer. He's going to figure this out and he's going to start hitting. There's some things about not only that, but Marcell Ozuna isn't really having the best year. He's also a professional. Elvis isn't really having the best year. I think these guys are going to come back around when you get healthier with Soroka coming back, when you get these guys back on track. This is a team that is absolutely scary, and I think what I hope doesn't happen is that these guys come back and then Ronald Acuna takes a little bit of a slide down.
Right.
Because he's out of this world good right now, and if he's not the MVP, I don't know who is.
The Braves have been like this for a few years now, if you've really been paying attention to the Braves. I mean, this year I'm giving everybody a little bit of a break. getting back to normal. Last year, they had a short season, 60 games. It was a sprint. So they really had to, pitchers could pitch deeper in games. This year, they're going to have to be stretched out a little bit more. Hitters, are really going to have to lock back in. Seeing fans in the stands, I don't think people realize how different that is, being in a huge stadium with no fans, and then having that this year, and somebody, yelling at you in your swing and telling you your mom is terrible and things like that. So, I mean, they've got to get back used to everything. But the Braves, for a while, they've been a streaky team. They've been home run reliant. They only have one or two players going at a time, and they've been like this for a while. And I've said for a long time that the Braves, they have a really good team. I love what Anthopoulos has done. I'm surprised he hasn't been arrested for robbery with what he did to Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies. Getting both of those guys signed to the deals that he did was just he had to have some blackmail on them or something. I don't understand. I see these guys getting $450 million deals that aren't anywhere near as productive as Ronald, who's getting like 100 over 10 or something like that. So it's just incredible what he's done. But I've said you can't win the World Series without 5 good pitchers to throw out there, especially going against the Dodgers. They have unlimited money. They're always going to have a good pitching staff. They're always going to have, great hitters. So you've got to match that. You can't just have good seasons, have streaky hitters that, the Braves are clutch. That's one thing I'll give them. They have last year and the year before, I think they had the most comeback, 7th inning or later wins in the league. They're a really clutch team, but you can't rely on that. And you've seen it every year when we hit the playoffs. We just don't have the pitching to hold up against these other teams. And I think they did do a really good job. They've developed Soroka, Fried, Anderson, all these guys. Bringing in Morton and Smiley's huge.
Now you got Huascar Ynoa.
Yeah, exactly. And he should start his own lawn service because he's been raking. Oh, my God. He's incredible.
Yeah, a grand slam? Come on.
He's been our best hitter in the past week, and he's a pitcher. So
seriously.
My grandfather, we watch Braves games together, and he's a real old-school guy, doesn't believe in the DH, loves the National League, the way it is with the pitchers hitting. And he told me yesterday, he said, I wish Ynoa could DH for us. So he was willing to go to the DH if he could.
Definitely do it in the
interleague play. Yeah, there's a couple games.
Yeah, he's absolutely a Shohei Ohtani type of player.
That's always been kind of funny to me. When I always thought that pitchers were usually the best athletes. If they weren't pitching, they were playing shortstop most of the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Growing up, they were hitters, and it just always seemed like crazy that they. I understand they probably weren't.
If you don't use it, you lose it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But some of these guys, I just felt like, hey, this is something that you could do is keep continuing to take like batting practice and every once in a while. Yeah. And it just seemed like they just lost their ability to hit, which is kind of crazy to me. But
I used to go to Braves games in the 90s and watch the pitchers do bunt practice. Every pitcher would be up there like making sure they knew how to get a sack bunt
down. The sack bunt. It was a huge part of the game. And he scored so many runs off of that.
Those guys all could actually hit. I mean, if you go back to even early 90s, I mean, Maddox, Smoltz, Steve Avery.
Don't bring up Mike Hampton. Don't bring up Mike.
We'll leave him out for now.
But they could all hit. I mean, I remember playing like video games with him, and Steve Avery's batting average was like 280, I think, one year. It was like crazy.
I genuinely think the Braves missed out on a few World Series because they gave Mike Hampton $190 million because they were like, oh, he's going to hit well every 5 days. Yeah. Because he was hitting, grand slams, a home run, like 13, 15 home runs a year at the time. And then we paid him a ton of money, and he was nothing as a pitcher, lost a little bit of his hitting. So you can't fall in love with that, but it is definitely a plus. I've enjoyed watching what has been doing this past week.
I do want to get back to what you said, though. Streaky is the premier word. It's the perfect word to describe what the Braves have been over the last as long as I can remember. I go back several years where the Braves were in first place from April through the All-Star break.
Right.
And then the epic collapse over the end of that season where they lost, I think they lost 20 games in a row.
Yeah.
Gave the NL East away and missed the playoffs entirely. And then you go back to last year, you get to Game 7 against the Dodgers, have the game in your hands, and then you make a boneheaded play on the base pass. Justin Turner, I mean, he made the Superman tag, but Ross and Riley never should have put Atlanta in that position in the first place. And then the situation with Ozzie Albies the other day where he blows off the call from the first base coach.
Right.
I don't know what he's thinking. He's out in no man's land somewhere, and he gets tagged out. And then he has the nerve to go, try to jaw with the first base coach a little bit. I'm like, give me a break, dude.
Yeah. I mean, those sometimes when you're in, I guess I'm gonna try to defend him. Sometimes when you're trying to for as a team that was slumping or something like that. You're trying to do something to rejuvenate them, taking an extra base when you can and stuff like that. Those are the kind of things the bench players, they look at and they're like, oh yeah, look at that.
Got to be smart about it.
But you have to be smart about it.
Got to be smart about it.
You know, I mean, but, you know, he's one of those guys that I like the fire he has, but let's get the team down a little bit and let's focus it on the field.
When it comes to the National League East, this is how volatile things are. This is how unpredictable the NL East is. 4 days ago, the Nationals were in first place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now the Nationals are in the cellar.
Yeah.
They're in fifth place. At 12-15, they've gone 5-5 over their last 10, and that was enough to drop them from the top to the bottom. The Braves have fluctuated between first and fourth place for the first 2 months of this season. The only real constant has been the Mets in the top two, it's fluctuating between 1 and 2 in the NL East. And Francisco Lindor has had a remarkable impact on that team.
Well, he's not batting very well. Defensively, he's fantastic.
Defensively, yeah, he's a
But
shortstop.
they've been so anemic lately on offense. The Mets actually fired their hitting coaches, both of them. They're Chili Davis, which is a name I haven't heard in about 150 years. But
nice.
You know,
solid name. Very
got
solid.
Like anybody with the name of a food in their name, I like.
I'll take it. I can be
You know,
friends
I
with
don't
you.
know if you guys have noticed this, but a little bit fat. Okay, I got it. But
You're big bone, buddy.
Yeah,
That's right.
Thank you, Tommy. So you know, it is crazy, and the NL East. I always thought coming into the season, looking at it, I'm like, these guys are going to beat each other up.
Right.
You know, there was a lot of talk out there that they're going to have 3 teams make the playoffs out of this division.
Right.
And then I always look to the NFL kind of analogy about how like these teams are just going to beat each other up the whole season, and that, you know, you're not going to have, when you have such a good division and you're playing your division opponents more often than not, you're not going to have a team in the cellar that you know that you're going to beat most of the time like that. You know what I mean? So I think what we're going to see all year long is just, well, maybe not even all year long. I think once we get past the All-Star break, I think a team or two is going to show who they are in the NL.
It's still really early, for sure.
Yeah.
Very.
And they're going to make a run, and there's going to be teams. I just don't see it being where we're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all season long, and then we only have a division leader that makes the playoffs.
So much talk about the Dodgers. And of course, they've got a great pitching staff. They paid out the wazoo for it. I think they paid a $12.5 million luxury tax this year,
Yeah, I mean,
if I'm not mistaken. But then Trevor Bauer.
They're printing money.
Yeah.
Trevor Bauer has given up, last I checked, he'd given up 8 home runs.
Yeah.
It's May 7th today?
Yeah.
All of 2020, he gave up 9 home runs. So
Right.
Trevor Bauer, he's been good, but he hasn't been the Bauer that we expected this year.
Yeah.
The door is open. LA, they blew a series against San Diego. They haven't looked even though they've been good, and they're in third place right now at 17-15. The San Francisco Giants are the surprise of the NL West. But suddenly there's a chink in the LA armor. Suddenly the Dodgers aren't unbeatable. Suddenly the Phillies, Mets, and Braves all look like they could run, maybe not beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series, but take them to 7 games. The one team that could take down LA is the St. Louis Cardinals. First place in the Central, 18-14. They've won 7 of their last 10, and Nolan Arenado that's the move of the offseason for me. Getting him from Colorado, bringing him to St. Louis. He's been electric at third base. The bat is popping. I think Colton Wong is still in St. Louis as well. He's been raking and playing good defense. St. Louis, they aren't great. They're not astronomical, but they're consistent. They're good enough. They win ball games. They win series. And now they've got a 1-game lead over the streaking Brewers, who I don't think the momentum is going to last for Milwaukee.
Yeah, all the Cardinals do is make great under-the-radar moves. Like, it seems like every few years they pick up somebody, they're like, I didn't even hear about that. It's not in the news a lot. St. Louis doesn't get a ton of media coverage, but they make good moves, including Nolan Arenado. I think, we've got to give some teams some slack. It's really early. This is the equivalent of, saying in week 2 or 3 of the season, trying to, predict what's going to happen, especially after the weird year last year. Everybody's going to have adjustments to make. It's still really early, but I do think what you were saying about Lindor, and multiple teams, there's things that you don't quite see and don't show up in the stat sheet that really affect baseball teams. Chemistry's huge, locker rooms are huge, and I really think that's one of the things that the Braves have done great. They've got a bunch of, young, energetic kids, make the game fun. When you're playing 162 games, it gets monotonous. So bringing Lindor and his energy, having a new owner with the Mets, the Cardinals getting Arenado, you got to pay attention to these little under-the-radar moves that you don't necessarily think are going to make a big deal and you don't necessarily see in the stat sheet, but some of these players are giving these teams new energy that they haven't had. There is a ton of parity so far this year, and I think we're going to have to, wait at least till the All-Star break till we start seeing who's really going to pull ahead. I do believe, the perennial contenders, the Dodgers, the Braves, all these teams are going to, start to pull ahead. But yeah, it's still really early, and it's just been a weird year so far.
Absolutely.
Definitely has. And weird is good in my opinion. Weird is interesting. I like to see weird. We started this conversation talking about the NL East. We'll wrap it up that way as well. Big 3-game series for the Phillies and Braves. Those are first and third, respectively, in the National League East. And Sunday Night Baseball is going to be the culmination of this series. I'm definitely going to be watching that one because the Phillies hold a 1.5 game lead over the Braves in the NL East. 3-game series. It's not out of the realm of possibility to think that the Braves could sweep this series or at least take 2 out of the 3. In that case, you're counting on the Mets to lose as many as they can over a 3-game series to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think Atlanta's in the driver's seat right now, even though they're in the third place position in the National League East. You're in control of your own destiny because these divisional series coming up are going to be of utmost importance. If you can beat your divisional rivals, that's your one-way ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
No doubt about it. Let's move on. Let's talk. I promised the college basketball fans we would get to it. So
I'm ready for this one.
First off, we got to talk about this name, image, and likeness law that's making its way through. Actually, it has already been signed by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp this last Thursday. And it's active in Georgia. The name, image, and likeness law is active in Georgia. The athletes are going to begin to be able to start making money off of themselves, even though they're signed on a scholarship, even though they belong to the university that they play for. They're individual, they're sole proprietors now of their own brand.
I think
way past due.
I think that these guys, there's obviously, it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago,
right?
Where you can go do a commercial locally, or you can go work in the off season for the insurance company.
The rules are ridiculous,
or all those things that they were
ridiculous.
You can't do anything.
Nowadays, kids are able to make money through these social media platforms, and prior to this, they weren't going to be allowed to do that kind of thing.
Right.
It would just be crazy. The whole thing gets just little sketchy here and there. I think what it needs, we're going to see it having some growing pains over the first couple years.
Right.
I think there's going to be some things where people are confused on what is going to be allowed, what is not going to be allowed, and then we're still going to have people getting paid with in duffel bags from Adidas and everything.
It'll always happen.
I think as a fan, do I like what's been going on lately? Not at all.
No.
But you can't blame the players.
Yeah.
Coaches have had the freedom at any time to, abandon all the promises they've made to players, to families, and go to a better situation. So I don't enjoy everything that's going on, but the players absolutely have a right. No other job in America can you not make money off of your image and likeness as an adult, as above 18. And you've got these players that have, built these followings, and the universities don't have to do anything. Right. The NCAA doesn't have to make it to where we're paying these kids, which they probably should with all the money they bring in. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Stupid.
And the rules are insane. I mean, there's people getting in trouble for having sandwiches bought for them at Subway.
That's
it's
the
insane.
Dumbest thing.
So it's long overdue. I was in high school many moons ago and did my senior project on the rules, how ridiculous they are, amateurism in general, and it blew my mind the amount of rules the NCAA had, and it got worse as they were trying to hold on to power.
Right, that was then. This is now.
Right, and there's going to be a huge shift. I mean, what the NBA is doing with the G League, I think that is going to be the future. Players want to, the NBA is still going to want a year to be able to look at kids before they go into the draft, to be able to do the scouting and things like that. And I understand that. I think they should, be fully allowed to go pro if they wish. But if they are going to do this 1 year wait thing that they're still doing, I think the G League's going to be a way of the future, because why would you not want to go get paid $100, $150 plus $1,000 to play a game for a little bit as your audition instead of going to school, taking classes, doing all these things? And I think college basketball is going to have to adapt or get left behind. I think a lot of people that are upset with college basketball are upset with how players are leaving, they get invested, but they can't get invested too long. Teams don't have time to grow together. Coaches don't have time to really coach these kids up as a unit. And I think if they just open things back up, let players still make money while they're in college from their likeness. I mean, Zion Williamson's been one of the biggest, marketers to come out in the last decade. And he said, if I could make money off of my social media, I could make more than enough money that I was having a great time in college. Yeah. I would have stayed in college. That would have been great for college basketball if I could have just made this money on the side.
And that's the thing. They're looking at the money that they can get. Right. And when they see these not being able to eat a damn sandwich, as you so to speak, is insane. There definitely shouldn't be the G League, and the G League is going to show that its force this year in the draft because 3 of the biggest names that went
100%
went to the G League this year are still going to be drafted in the top 10. Now, because in the past, that hasn't necessarily worked out great for some of these players that have either decided to go overseas and play for a year or to go to the G League. It hasn't really turned out where their draft stock had kind of fallen a little bit, but it's not happening anymore. This is going to happen more times than not. And I've been on it, and I've been saying this for a long time, for a very, very, very long time. I would like the college basketball to adopt the college baseball plan that they have, whereas they can leave out of high school and go to the pros 100%.
Yeah.
Whether they go to G League or they get drafted. But if they don't do that and they decide to go to college, then they have to stay at least 2 years.
At least 2, yeah.
And that's what college baseball does. And I like that idea because then it keeps these guys, the whole idea of the one and done is ruining college basketball. These guys come in there, they don't go to class, they don't care about anything. All they want to do is get through the first semester, and then they're out of it.
And it's hard to blame them.
Oh, yeah.
And I would do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But if you don't force them to, if you don't have rules in place for those, they're going to do this kind of thing. Yeah. And then what also is happening, because you've seen this over the last couple of years, you're going to get guys that are going to just quit. What Jalen Johnson, is that a name from Duke this year? 100% quit. He got a little bit hurt. Duke sucked. They weren't going to make the play. They weren't going to make their and he was just like, why do I need to play? That also hurts that too, because what's going to, with the one and dones, you're going to get guys that are going to see come in there, and if they don't think their team's going to be good, or they might have some injuries, or where they could come back to play, or these kind of things, they're just going to ship it home and say whatever, you know.
And I'm glad you make that point about the college eligibility thing, because I think with this Georgia thing, this is only the beginning. Obviously, the patchwork is expanding across the nation. Every state is soon going to have one of these, especially after they see the benefits that Georgia reaps out of this. We're going to start seeing a lot more Anthony Edwards type players. We're going to start seeing these irrelevant programs. I mean, Georgia is going to be the best basketball team. They have to be since the 80s.
Other states have to get with it.
Yeah, I mean,
soon.
I think Florida has already signed in there.
Yeah, I think California was working on
Florida,
it.
There's a few teams, and that's another thing. If the states don't jump into this, you're going to see that happen over the next couple of years too. Why would you want to go play in? I don't know if Illinois has it. Let's just say, why would you want to go play in Illinois when you can go to Georgia and make money?
Exactly.
So you're going to have this thing that if they don't all get into the same ball game, it's going to be an unfair advantage to these schools and stuff like that.
So either that happens, in Georgia, where they become the hot spot of players coming from all over the country to be here, or this overtime elite thing begins to take off, where players forego their college eligibility. They say, you know what, we're going to sign it off. We're not even going to think about playing college basketball. We're going to focus on being pros.
Yeah.
And that is something that's really beginning to pick up steam.
And I'm not going to lie, this whole thing with college basketball is going to be with the G League and the basketball and all this stuff, the name, team, and the likeness. I think what you're going to see is a little bit of a change in guard, and I think it's going to affect football as well. I think that what you're going to see is when things like the XFL start coming into play, and people are going to shun on that idea about the XFL. But there was a lot of players that were on rosters that made NFL teams from that. I could see a path to where the G League and the XFL are kind of similar in that they're going to be like farm teams in baseball for players to go to, where guys that they don't want to go to college. They know that they want to play professional.
People want options.
Sports.
They want the same free market that everyone else gets.
Everybody else in their option, and that's going to get an option. I don't know what the XFL rules are going to be. I don't know if they have rules. Like, can we take guys out of high school? Can we do this? Can we do that? That's obviously something we're going to see. But I could definitely see a path to where we're going to have like, the farm system for baseball, the G League for basketball, and the XFL-ish, whatever. They might come up with another thing.
I think that's going to make college sports better as well, because when you take out the people that don't want to be there, and even though you're not going to get the top-end talent, people love college basketball because they get invested in these teams, in these players, and if you can watch, just below top-tier talent mold together, play really good basketball, get back to good basketball. We're seeing teams that are all the way in the NCAA tournament, and like with Baylor this year, a lot of upperclassmen, they dominated. It wasn't even close because teams aren't playing good basketball anymore. They've got a couple guys that play hero ball. To recruit, you've got to make guys promises. Like what you said with Jalen Johnson, he decided to leave the team once he was benched because Coach K was trying to do what was better for the team. But in his mind, he's like, I had promises of being a top recruit, coming in here and being like all the other one and dones at Duke, and being a top 10 pick and doing all these things. When I'm, he did have some injuries. I don't, blame the kid. But I understand the sentiment of being projected a top 10 pick, and then when people tune in to watch your team, they're not doing well, and they're also not starting you because you're turning the ball over so much. And they have to do what's best for the team. So I understand that's a bad look for him, but he should have never been there in the first place. He's not a kid that wanted to go to college.
No, he didn't have to.
The more options, the more that the NCAA opens things up, lets kids make money for being in college, and says this G League path, is okay if you're going to be a one and done anyway. You have no interest in school. There's no point in taking scholarships and spots at these universities that people want to be at when we can still have a high quality product in college and not like handcuff these kids and tell them what they need to be doing when we don't do that anywhere else in America across any other job.
Here's my take on this whole overtime elite thing. So we're so used to seeing, like you said, college basketball is the cream of the crop of the nation's youngest players. It's the next step up to the NBA. If you want to be a professional, you play college basketball first, and then you get to the top stage. What we're realizing for a lot of these kids is that being the best, if you have an option to make money and still be not the best, still be on the next tier down and still make enough money to provide for your family. Why would you not do that? If you don't need to be in the NBA, if you don't need to be at the top tier and still provide for your family, there's an opportunity for you to do that. Now, that being said, I think that makes the actual competition in the NCAA better. If 100%. Your actual amateurs are going to be elevated.
Be there, want to be there. Like you'll have these kids like that come from either wealthy families or they're legacy players that their parents have played in the league, and if they choose to go to college, they want to be there for the environment. They don't need the money and things like that. But you can't tell a kid that needs the money, has this skill, any other job field you would have gone into with this top skill at your age, you can be making money right now. You can't tell him he can't, and he has to still, watch his family, not do as well while he goes and sits in a classroom that he doesn't want to be in, learns about things that he doesn't want to learn. Like, you've just got to give them the freedom to do that, and it's going to really improve the college game because everyone that's going to be there wants to be there. And top talent might still go there. Like Zion said, he loved the environment of college. He loved going to play at Carolina, even though he slipped out of his shoe and hurt his knee and lost the game. But anyways, thanks Nike. Like he's such a talent, and if he was allowed to make the money that he was already capable of making in anything else, just with his brand deals and like just with the followers he had, it would have been great for college basketball, and he is a player that wants to be there. And if college basketball is filled with players that want to be there, that are invested in the team environment, the product's going to be that much better. And it's okay that these other kids that want to go G League, that's going to make G League better. That's going to do great for those, random cities that these G League teams are in. And, NBA still gets to do their scouting of quality basketball in both leagues.
And the NBA draft is become a draft of potential, not of things. I think that
there's ageism.
And it could be a definite change in that regard, because I used to love the NBA draft. Like when I was a kid, and you knew where they went, all these kids. Now it's just like you see these stat lines of these kids, and they're like, this kid just got drafted 4th overall. And
3 points a game.
And he averaged 4 points a game. And you're like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. But he's coachable.
Yeah. You know? I think that's going to help that, because you're also seeing in the NBA, you're seeing guys that have gone to the G League or you've gone somewhere else to play and are getting opportunities later on. Not necessarily right out of there, but I'm saying 2 or 3 years down the road, you're seeing guys. There's a perfect example of that right now going on in Indiana. O'Shea Brissett, who played at Syracuse.
Yeah.
He was drafted, bounced around the G League, went to Toronto, came back to the G League. He's starting right now, and he's averaging, 14 points a game. And these guys, and that's what I'm saying, they're developmental. I would rather see kids that aren't going to stay in college for a few years, go the G League route, because they can get that way and they don't affect the college basketball product.
Right.
And so I'm hoping what I'm hoping for is to see this become something of a more of a norm, where you see the top 3 recruits going to the G League. Yeah. Because honestly, if you're going to be one and done, I'd rather you just go to the G League and not go to college at all, period.
Exactly. Well, guys, it's the biggest question in college basketball today. What's wrong with the ACC? What's happened to ACC basketball? The Carolinas, the Dukes, why aren't they winning basketball games? And I think we've just answered that question here today. It's for 2 reasons. One, the West Coast is getting better. The Big 12, the Pac-12 are both getting better as a conference, and Gonzaga obviously is who they are as a one-off team over in the WCC. The other thing is the ACC is hemorrhaging players because there's this abundance of talent. You've got the good players, and then you've got this next level of players who could start elsewhere, but they wanted to take a crack at the ACC. Right. They become an integral part of this offense. They become an integral part of the game plan, and then after a year, they're gone. Walker Kessler, prime example for Carolina.
That's a perfect example.
Changing this rule. I like the rule change where you require 2 or 3 years. You get rid of the one and done. But then by also allowing the lesser thans to go play their ball elsewhere and not really be penalized because of it, I think that's what fixes the Atlantic Coast Conference.
And also the problem right now with all this thing too, is if you have that in play and then you have this transfer portal where you're allowed. See, if people who don't know, this transfer portal
it's asinine this year. It's crazy.
You were in past, if you wanted to transfer, you had to sit out a year.
Yes.
100%. There wasn't anything you couldn't do it. And not only that, but you couldn't transfer within conference. That was something that was a rule as well. Now the NCAA is allowing you, and I see what they were saying. The longest time that people were saying, well, these kids can't leave, they have to sit out a year, but a coach can just go ahead and leave and he can go to another school and be coaching the next year. There was some talk about that. And I can understand where that kind of idea would come from. But the idea now is that they just come in and they can play 1 year at one school and then they can transfer to another school.
Right.
So now you have these guys that are coming in, and and they're in the comments here because these guys are talking about get mine. I'm going to get mine. I'm not getting the ball. I'm not doing this. I'm not getting that. So I'm going to transfer out to another school. And it's just like, I think what happened, a lot of that was, especially with Carolina this year, they had so many big guys and so many things on that team. So I'm going to take Walker Kessler as the perfect example of this. You could see the talent in this kid.
Oh, 100%.
He is not.
He's a stud.
He's a prototypical Carolina big man.
Yeah, he's a Tyler Hansbrough type player.
Loaded down low, and he just wasn't getting the playing time and stuff because Roy and I think part of this, what happened, is why Roy said, "Screw it, I'm done."
Absolutely.
We talked about that when it happened. I think he was just like, "I can't coach these kids anymore. I'm done. It's not the same way anymore."
Right.
It's you put all this time and effort into recruiting these kids. People don't understand what it takes to actually what you do to have to recruit someone to your school. I mean, you're fighting over all these other people. You're doing all these things. It's a 24-hour a day, 365-day a year job. And then you get a player that comes in and says, I'm not getting enough playing time, I didn't get the ball enough, I'm gone.
Right. And on the same token, could you imagine if the Ball brothers had gone through the NCAA?
Yeah.
LaMelo, LiAngelo, Lonzo.
Lonzo played at UCLA. But
right, yeah. But 2 out of the 3.
LiAngelo stole sunglasses or he would have been there.
Yeah. And you can imagine how this would have gone with the elder Ball, acting as their agent or whatever, trying to really shop them around and get them the best deal possible. That's a professional benefit that a lot of these guys don't have. And I probably would have stopped watching college basketball, honestly, if the Ball brothers had started trying to manipulate the system like this.
They tried to start their own league and that didn't work out too well.
Exactly. So
I'm a fan. Never lost.
Never lost.
Never lost, yeah. Yeah, except for LaMelo and the god-awful Hornets.
By the way, we talked about that. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The thing is, we've seen it over the last couple of years. I think that, March Madness is its thing, and it's going to always be a thing, and it's amazing. But I think college basketball has gotten to the point to where people just don't give a crap until March Madness.
That's the shameful thing.
And I hate that because, God, college basketball has always been a thing. I played throughout high school and college a little bit. It's something that, you wait around all year long. You see the conference tournaments and people are there for them. You watch games, the ACC Monday night game on ESPN 7 and 9 were always just you go in and see
Big Monday.
Big Monday, yeah. Big Monday was like this huge thing. I'm from Syracuse, so I'm a huge Syracuse fan. I moved away, but I moved into the Carolinas when I was 19 years old.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, we're in the ACC country still.
Right.
The thing is, too, there's a lot of, I see, and it was a little bit of a problem, these platforms out there where they're actually, not as many people have cut some cords, and they can't be, they're not as readily accessible to watching the games as they used to as well. And I think where people aren't in cable and watching all the games where you have all these things, and they only have certain times.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so before it was like every night of the week you'd catch a basketball game.
Yeah.
Now most people don't even watch basketball. They're on Netflix, they're on this, they're watching this with their families, or doing that.
Right.
But I mean, it's still, that could be said a little bit. I want college basketball to get back to what it was, and it's been horrible to watch. It's so horrible to watch lately, and even so into the. And here's the thing. I'm sorry, I'm kind of ranting on this a little bit, but the thing is, I watched a team like Syracuse just made a Sweet 16 run. Alan Griffin decides to go pro.
Right.
He played 4 minutes a game in the tournament because he wasn't able to get into the rotation.
Right.
Quincy Guerrier, who had a good tournament, showed us off. He decided he wanted to check out the pro things, but he just came back and said if he doesn't decide to go pro, he's going to be transferring out. Right. We had Kadari Richardson, who was a freshman. He's going to transfer out. We had 3 other guys that are going to transfer out of that program. I mean, it's just like you're watching these guys, and you've got all these guys that are going too early, leaving early. I mean, God, I would love to see the list of players that left early over the last 10 years that haven't been drafted and are playing overseas.
Well, what's Mac McClung doing right now? He said he's going to test the waters of the NBA draft.
And if he doesn't
get drafted, he's coming back. If we're going to change rules, we need to make it so that you can't screw your team like this. If I'm a head coach, that's got to be maddening, not knowing if you're going to have your guy.
By that time, which also affects recruiting.
Right.
And I think it's hard to know who to, there's a lot of smoke screens. It's hard to know who to place the blame on. It's hard to blame the kids when the ageism thing is so real in the NBA. Like, there's players that are talented that are 22, 23 seniors that have stayed the whole time, and they don't get drafted as high. Yeah. They lose out on a lot of money because there's these raw 18-year-old prospects that they're like, why would you stay in college for 4 years if you had the talent to shine in the NBA?
Right.
And I think that, these things that we were talking about is going to help the game, and fans do want to get back to the thing that made the ACC great, made Syracuse and Carolina and Duke and all these teams great to watch, is because you would see guys that were in a program for 4 years learning the Syracuse zone. Yeah. You would see guys learning the Carolina, run and gun offense, the Duke, motion offense, and really, you're invested in these players. You watch them year over year. You see the growth in them. As much as everyone hates, guys like Grayson Allen and Tyler Hansbrough and these guys, being able to tune in and know what your team is going to have and what they're going to get year over year is great. But you can't necessarily blame the players for, doing what's best for them. And I think where the blame goes is a lot of bad advice these players get. They have a lot of, people in their ear telling them that in these different situations they can shine. People are leaving really good teams, really good coaches, really good developmental programs because they think they can go to a, little bit lower tiered school and shine. And I don't think that NBA scouts are really going to look at players and say, hey, this guy, couldn't make it starting on a Syracuse, but he's going to go to a lower tier school and then have good numbers and we're going to draft it. I don't think, anything, all these transfers, I don't really know if it's going to help these kids. And I think they're getting a lot of advice saying you need to go now. But that's where I think changing all this to where when you are in college, you can make a little bit of income. There's no pressure from that. Mm-hmm. And also the kids in the G League, all these other kids, they're where they want to be, and the kids that go to college are where they want to be. And you feel more comfortable if you know, I'm a college player. I can still make my money on the side. And then after 3 or 4 years of development, instead of getting stuck on the end of a bench in the NBA, I can develop and play ball for 4 years here, still make my money, and then try for the NBA.
Yeah.
See how it works out. There's still other options to make it to the NBA. You see guys that, go undrafted, like a Quinn Cook that, doesn't make it to the league till he's 25, 26 years old, but then sticks around. So it can happen. We're just in an environment, and I think that NCAA has made this environment where, players aren't where they want to be, and the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yep.
And they have so many people in their ear and so much pressure that they're getting really bad advice.
Yep.
And I think the NCAA needs to step back, realize what's best for their game, and take out some of these rules, let players make their money in college, and their product will be that much better, and more people will tune into all these games. They'll get better revenue.
Yep.
You can't put people where they don't want to be and expect good results.
Yep.
Just a little bit of opportunity. A little opportunity is all we're asking for.
Yep.
And I'm curious to see how much of an impact this Georgia NIL law has, not only on the state of college basketball, but on the NCAA as a whole. The model is changing. It's all coming around. And very soon we're going to have a revolution on our hands.
Yep.
He's Big Brian Haynes, Sportsocracy on the Twitter. Tommy Bradley.
Good show today, guys.
Yeah, we shot for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Our goal was to get 30 minutes. We got an hour 5 out of it.
It was a little rough getting started, but we rocked it, knocked it out of the house.
They had to call in the B team, but we pulled through. We had some clutch hits off the bench. We tried to do our thing, and we appreciate you guys.
Yep.
Monday, Jeremy and Tank will be back. Once again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.
Yes,
we love 100%.
You. Love you guys.
And we've got a lot of big things coming. We got a lot of announcements coming out, so just stay tuned with all that stuff. And the boys will be back in on Monday. We'll see you guys then.
Don't forget our Patreon page coming soon. We're going to be delivering specific content. Is it live now? So the Patreon page is live. Check it out, the Sportsocracy Patreon page, if I can get it out. If you want to contribute to us directly, you can do it that way. We've got, I think we've got 5 different tiers of membership that you can be a part of. We're working on individualized content across all sports, NFL, MLB. We're going to have some hockey coverage. We're going to cover some NASCAR. If you want to hear it, it's going to be on the page, or if you want to view it rather, it's going to be on the Patreon page. So just remember that's there. Like, follow, subscribe to the Sportsocracy YouTube page. We would definitely appreciate it. I'm Caleb Peak at CPKBL on Twitter. This is the Sportsocracy live from Asheville, North Carolina in the Wicked Weed Studio. It's all brought to you by Wicked Weed Brewing. Drink different. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.